When we write code, it's very important to keep things organized. This is a really simple site so far, and it's already starting to look complicated. So what we usually do when we have things that are nested, like here for example, we have a UL and an LI, we usually indent the child elements. Now I'm indenting by hitting the tab button. One tab per nest, or per layer deep it is. Now another trick is that we don't usually indent this sort of thing. So this is like within a line. So if you were to look at our page again, the UL, when we added it, it kind of like made a line break here and a line break here. It made it like a block, its own block. So we usually will indent those, but this list item and the anchor are like on the same line, and we don't usually indent that. So I wouldn't do this typically, although you could if you really were confused and needed it to be clear, and I've done this sometimes. So this is one way of doing it, and if you really wanted to get excessive, you could even indent and do this. And note how the IDE, note how this text editor is helping me by kind of helping where my indentations go when I hit return. So if you wanted to, you could indent like this to just make it very clear that project grandma is inside of this anchor tag, which is inside of this list item, which is inside of this unordered list block. But that's a little bit redundant. It's usually easier to put items that are kind of like in the same line, all on the same line. Likewise, up here, we wouldn't try and put this in a new line and indent it, because this is kind of like, it breaks up the flow of the sentence. This is a cloud change. So I'm going to go back and undo that, because it's kind of like an inline thing. However, this paragraph blocks it out onto like its own little block. So we are going to leave that, and I'm going to indent this and this. So you'll note that as we go through and indent all of this and clean up any blank spaces, that sometimes you want to indent a lot of things. So I want to indent everything that's inside this body from here to here. So I can either go one at a time, or there's a couple of tricks you can use. So I can just highlight everything I want to indent as long as there's multiple lines and hit tab, and it does all of them for you. Tab, 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 it'll keep doing it. Now what if you want to take them all back one indentation? You can use a special character combination called Shift Tab. Now this is not universal. Some good text editors will have some of these shortcuts and some won't. So you've got to get familiar with the text editor you're using. But most of the advanced ones have tab when you have multiple lines selected to indent all of them, and then to unindent, hit shift, hold it, and then type tab to unindent. And so you just hold shift, and when you're holding shift and you hit tab, it goes back in indentation. When you're not holding shift and you hit tab, it goes forward. So I'm going to continue clearing all of this up. HTML and body are both inside of the HTML element. Sorry, I meant body and head are both inside of the HTML element. So now our text is a little bit cleaner and easier to look at. It may look more confusing to you now, but when you get to a very full, big, confusing page, it's going to be helpful for you to be able to kind of get your bearings of how nested, how deep in something is by looking at the indentation. Now it also brings to light some issues, like for example, this text right here on line 13 is actually a direct child of the body element. It's not nested under anything else. Now that's kind of a warning sign, because what that means is that the only semantic meaning that this text has is that it's HTML in the document body. So it actually has no semantic meaning beyond just that it's a web page. It's part of a web page. So usually that's an indication that something is awry. And what we actually need to do is give this a paragraph tag around it, because it is a paragraph. Whoops, I double typed that and it helped me out there. Okay, so this is a block level paragraph. This is why I've put it on its own new line. And now you may note that I'm kind of like being inconsistent in my indentation. With these paragraphs, I have created a new line and indented, and with this one I just put it straight in here. That's not a bad thing to be inconsistent, but for the most part it's probably good if you try for consistency, especially when you're beginning, until you develop certain habits that help you in your coding. So now if I save this and refresh, you'll actually see no changes, because all I've done is change the way that I've formatted it for me to see, not the way I've formatted it for anybody else to see it. It's not changing the HTML format, and I did change the semantics of this paragraph, but it didn't actually change the way it looked. So here is the source of the page right here. This is the code that's behind this. Now, what if I want to look at the code on this page without getting this whole shift edit opened up and finding the file? What if I just want to check really quick about what this looks like? Okay, like for example, I want to go to Sam Gildia's page. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. And I want to see how he did this. I can't log into his account. I don't have his account. He didn't give his password out. Hopefully he didn't. But what I can do is I can actually get at the code that's behind it. I can get the source of how this was built. And the way you do that is from the browser. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Or actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag it over to this side of the screen. Because what I'm going to show you is in this little menu. Now every operating system and every browser has a different place that you have the menu item. But in Chrome, you go in here and then go to Tools, and you can see this item, this menu item right here, View Source. And the shortcut for that is Option Command U. On almost all Windows computers, the shortcut for it is Control U. So if you're in Windows, don't even try and find the menu icon, just always type Control U to do this, to find View Source. On a lot of other computers, you'll need to go View and find Source. In Chrome on Mac, it's not like that. But so go to Tools and View Source. Okay, so let me open this back up. Did you see what it did there? It opened a new tab. So this is the page I was on. This was Sam's page. And now opened this tab with the source. You see that it says View Source here, and it has the same URL or the same location, and it shows the actual source. You've got line numbers, and I can see the elements he used. So I can see that he used the I tag, which is good because if he'd used the EM tag, that would mean semantically that this entire sentence is emphasized, which would be a little bit weird. However, it's not really this isn't really a foreign word or a special term, so it's still not quite semantically correct. So in the future we'll use CSS, and what we'll do is we'll use a semantically correct tag and then use CSS to make it italicized so that it can look the way he wants without being semantically incorrect. But I'll teach you how to do that later. So we can also see things like he's put line breaks in here, one before and one after this italicized part, which doesn't show up. So we can see a lot of this stuff just for anybody to see on any website. So you can do this on any website. Go to any website you want and check out the source. Let's go to Skillshare and check out the source. I have a shortcut right here. Okay, for me it's it's Option Command U. If you're on Windows, it's Control U. Okay, so Skillshare.com, I'm viewing the source. Here's the source. Check it out. You can see this on any page, and you can look through and you can figure out for the most part how they did things. This is actually one of the biggest learning tools that you have, is the View Source command. Just go ahead and view the source of any page when you're curious about how they did something. How did they get this Skillshare picture there? you can view the source, and because this is a very complicated page, there's a lot of code to scroll through. But eventually, you'll be able to find it. Now, I'm able to find it a little bit quicker because I've done this for a living. So I can tell you right now, this is the code for this picture right here. I can see that right away. Now it'll take you a while to get to that point, but you'll get there eventually because you'll be able to read all of these extra little things that'll make sense. It'll just like parse in. So you're at the part where you're like learning individual letters and you're thinking, how can anybody read all of those letters individually and form words and then read those words together so quickly that they can read it as fast as they talk. I remember thinking that when I was learning how to read. I was figuring out just the letters one at a time. That's a K, that's a I. And then here's somebody who knows how to read just is reading entire sentences almost as soon as they see it. So this is where you're at right now, is one letter at a time. But you're going to pick it up really quickly. Since I've highlighted this for you, we can see, look at this, images/logo-slim.png. And I can actually click on it. In some browsers, most browsers, if you have a newer browser, will allow you to click on URLs within the page, and it understands the context. But I'm going to right click on it and do new tab, and we'll see that this is the image. It's the same image that was right there. So you can get a lot done. This is very powerful. And note here, they didn't put the full URL. So how do they do that? This / at the beginning of where the URL should be indicates that it's a relative path that starts right at the end of the domain, right there. So if you ever see this, or if you ever put a link that doesn't have the full domain, it just is relative to starting with a /, then this is how it works. We'll talk about it later, but there's just like a lot of stuff that as you're looking through, you're going to run into tons of different cool things that you want to learn how to do, and viewing the source is going to show you how to do it. There are a couple of things that you always need to write when you create a web page. You always need to write HTML, head, and body. So it always has HTML with head and body nested within it. Also, you'll always want a title. And there's some other things. So what we call when you have a bunch of repetitive code that is always required and you don't want to keep writing it, so you kind of like create it and in a place where you can copy and paste from it, or copy and paste the files, we call that a boilerplate. It's like a little template that you use to like get you started for like how you're going to build your page. So if you always have this HTML, head, body, etc. stuff when you're making your page, you might want to like go ahead and do that. And you might even want to do something like, if your titles always start with a certain phrase and then you add a little bit more in afterwards, include that in your boilerplate as well. And then when you start with your boilerplate, you won't have to do that redundant, repetitive stuff. You'll have a good start ready for you already. Now this shift edit actually has a kind of a little boilerplate built in. I told you not to do this before because I wanted to show it to you now. But if you go to the new tab, and if you click a new tab here, it's the same thing. I'll close that. You go to a new tab and you create using one of these little guys. I'm going to drag this back out because we can look at it now. If you create one of these pages, and don't even worry about all this stuff, we're not going to get into that at all, but you will get into HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and if you're interested, maybe even PHP. But create an HTML page and look at what comes up. There's a little boilerplate that does all this stuff for you. Remember how we had to type HTML, close HTML, head, close head, title, close title, body, close body, and it even puts a space between the body tags so that you can begin writing the document body, the content for your page. And if you didn't title it, it gives you the title untitled. Now there's a couple of special things in here. It's giving you a meta character set. This is a very special tag that goes in the head that tells the browser what character set you're using. Most of the time now, UTF-8 is the best character set to use. This program knows that it's using the UTF-8 character set, so don't worry about this. Just leave this alone. Remember in previous lecture when I showed you how to save in plain text, you may have seen that there was an option to change the character set, and I said just leave it. That's because if you had changed it and then saved it without resetting it to the correct character set, you'll get weird things like you get a bunch of question marks or blocks or things if the character set isn't correct. So just leave this alone. Most of the time UTF-8 is what your character set will be. The other thing that is new in this little boilerplate that I didn't show you is this. Now remember that little caveat when I said that HTML is always the first line of a document? It wasn't really a caveat, it was just a straight up lie. The first line of every document is actually the doc type. The doc type is a special way of defining what type of HTML you're coding in. There's actually multiple versions of HTML. Well, there used to be. Nowadays, we've realized that having multiple versions of HTML kind of causes problems, and it did cause a lot of problems in the past. There was HTML 3, there was HTML 4 and 4.1, there was the transitional standards and non-standard versions. We had a version of HTML that began to be colloquially known as tag soup HTML because it didn't have a doc type and it didn't follow the syntax properly, it didn't follow the standards, and so it was just tags kind of like thrown together in a soup, and the browser had to figure out what to do with it. And for the most part, browsers are pretty good at figuring it out. So this is what the old doc types used to look like. It used to be that you would have to do all of this. You would define your root element, and then there's all these other like little parts of it. So let's see an example. Here's the doc type for XHTML1. Look at how ridiculously long it is. It doesn't even fit on the page. It includes things like a link to the specification, the language. Here's HTML4, just regular old HTML 4.01. Look at this mess. And there's multiple version types of HTML4. This is standards. This is transitional, which is a little bit looser. You might see the word loose. And then there's another version for if you were using frames. So all these different doc types, what a mess. We don't do that anymore. What we've done now is we've simplified it, and it's just one HTML. You're just using HTML. It's not quite the same as tag soup because your browser will know that you're following standards, but it's similar in the sense that we're not going to keep trying to like specify exactly which version of HTML we're coding to, and then the browser will render it differently depending on if you actually forget, ooh, in HTML 4.01 transitional, you have to do this very specific thing, and in HTML 4.01 strict, you have to do this thing, and so now my entire page broke because I deviated a little bit. It's not going to do that anymore. This is new in HTML5, and this is interesting. This is actually the HTML5 doc type, but no, it doesn't have a 5 there. It's because we're not doing versions anymore. This is just HTML from now on. It's a living standard. Always put this on the top of your page and know that it's simpler now than it has ever been.